Camera's there. We're going to look at notes there. It'll be fine. Definitely looks like we're looking up in a weird way, but I think that's okay. I'm going to try to look at the camera. Also,
Hi,
we're
everybody.
totally live.
Jason and I are live from San Jose in our Gremlin office today and trying to figure out how it works being in person.
It is definitely weird. Like partly just because setting up somewhere that like you're trying to work with, you know, within the constraints. It's kind of like engineering in a way. Most of everything that we do is working with constraints that are not ideal at all, which leads to some interesting things.
It does.
Yeah.
And so welcome to Site Reliability Chats for the week of April 13th, or at least that's the date today. We are back after a week hiatus because I was out of country. So I'm Julie Gunderson, Senior Reliability Advocate here at Gremlin.
And I'm Jason Yee, Director of Advocacy here at Gremlin. Where were you, Julie?
I was in the Netherlands, Jason, and actually, let's go ahead and bring up our first story. So first of all of you, I'm very excited to be able to actually do this with my paper like a real news reporter. So I was in the Netherlands actually speaking at a Survision conference and the DevOps Amsterdam meetup. And it was quite interesting because I landed for my first time in the Netherlands and the trains were down. And we're talking a national train outage where an undisclosed technical issue caused the rails to stop for the entire day. So this is a really big mass outage.
And it's big news because their trains generally run pretty reliably.
Very reliably. And actually, like, it was quite interesting because it was a Sunday. So they have backup plans for if the trains go down, which include buses, but everything wasn't at capacity because it was a Sunday. They didn't think a lot of people would be traveling and certainly weren't expecting a big outage. You know, it was kind of a bummer though, because I couldn't email anybody about it because Yahoo email was also down. I just don't think anybody noticed.
No.
No.
Yeah. Congrats on being the last Yahoo email user.
Well, okay, fine. But with that, the trains were down. So it sounds like there was a bit of a database issue where two databases couldn't talk to each other. Their trains are actually managed by two different groups.
Okay.
One is the government, another sounds like it's a private entity.
Yeah.
Either way, what I've learned is we're most likely not going to get a public postmortem on this due to politics. Jason, one of the things that I really like on this is if you can pop to the next image, is in the notification which they popped up, you can see where I put that nice little red box on there where they literally say we can't even give any information to the stations.
Are they saying they can't or they won't?
I actually think they couldn't. It had to do with when this type of outage happens, it actually ended up having to do somewhat with safety. So when it's unsafe for those trains to run, they just stop them. You get off at your next stop. I think it was they couldn't, but maybe it was they won't.
Yeah. I mean, it's always good to prioritize safety. If they can't guarantee your safety and that the trains will not run you over or crash into things, good job on stopping that.
Yeah. And luckily there's bikes and Uber and buses. And so it ended up ending after that day. All the trains are operational as far as I know, and the Netherlands is a great place. So with that, there were also some other quite big pieces of news that we would have loved to have brought to you as they happened, but we did take a week off due to my traveling. But American Express was also down. This was an hours-long outage.
This one was interesting. It started with users reporting that they couldn't log in and make payments, which sounds slightly like a joke to us because one of our demo applications that we use is the Bank of Anthos. Thank you to the folks at Google and Amazon and other places that work on that open source project that we can all use as demos. But that's a common thing that we test for is, can users log in? And so we play around with that app. It looks like this actually happened in production in the real world. So
it did. And it wasn't a joke that it happened on April 1st, but it was technical issues. And these technical issues, and everybody can hopefully see what we're showing, these technical issues actually extended to the phone lines, to online accounts, Amex Mobile, and even two-factor authentication.
Yeah. And so what we're seeing here is from our good friend Kareem Satirli, also in the Netherlands. Kareem found that the SSL cert, or the TLS certificate, did not match the domain, which is one of probably many contributing factors in this outage.
Yeah, absolutely. So it does seem that they are back up. Amex did actually make some statements saying, oh, everything's fine. Then they had to roll those back on Twitter because it wasn't fine for everybody. Either way, it's fixed, and hopefully they'll learn for it. We didn't have time to look for a public postmortem, but if we find one, we'll come back to you with that information.
Also interesting, as a certificate issue that we're seeing here, is it a certificate or is it DNS? Because it could be DNS with a domain name mismatch.
It really could. The thing is, the issue also extended to the phone lines.
Yeah.
To the customer service people. Like you couldn't reach them. So with all of that, was it just this one thing?
Yeah. Was it that the phone customer service folks couldn't log in, or was it a completely different system? We will find these things out if they ever publish them. So if you work at Amex and you want to chat with us, we're happy to talk about things. Not to cast dispersions on anybody that works there. We just love to talk with engineers and see what they learned.
We do, or any of our friends in the public that happen to know what may have happened. Any more details, share in the comments. You can also find us on Twitter, so you can reach out to Jason and I think showing the banner for you right now. That said, in the streak of outages, Atlassian, first of all, gonna send some love to our Atlassian engineers who have been dealing with this outage now for over a week, and it looks like maybe even 2 more weeks. So first of all, we love you. Keep working hard. So Atlassian is having a pretty big outage due to planned maintenance that actually ended up, they said there was some miscommunication and a faulty script. They kind of deleted some of their own products for their customers. I think it's interesting too, because as this was happening, Southwest Airlines also had planned maintenance that took down flights nationwide in the US because of planned maintenance.
This is an interesting question, right? Like, you plan for a maintenance window, you take things down, and then when you have an incident that springs from it, do you continue? Do you roll back? That's an interesting question, right? Especially with Atlassian being down for so long. Would it have been better for them to just roll things back? Could they have rolled things back?
I don't think they could have. So this was due to old data cleanup, and they removed access to 400 plus customers. Now, Jason and I have been arguing about this morning. So Jason says that's not that big of a deal because they have 226,000 customers. I say those 400 customers have customers.
So it's an interesting thing that we should all discuss, right? Especially as you're adopting things like SLOs, there is an allowable error budget. And depending on how you construct your SLOs, 400 customers out of 200,000 is 0.2%.
I mean,
and so if your SLO target is 99.8%, then you're still within your SLOs, right?
Well, how does the 3 weeks play into that?
Well, so your SLOs are usually a rolling time scale. It's a good discussion though, right? Like how much we often think of incidents and downtime or unavailability as a percentage of traffic, as if all of our customers can access our website except for that 0.2% of times that they try. And we don't often think that that incident isn't spread evenly across people or across users. And so is it valid to have those same SLOs if you think of 0.2% of your customers will have 0 access while everybody else is okay?
Right, but now think about that 0.2% of the customers. What is the size? Who are those customers? If it's 0.2% of your biggest customers, then I think you might have a bigger problem. However, I think in this case, that might not actually be the situation. But I will say shout out to some of our friends at PagerDuty, because it does seem like Ops Genie is down. I have to say that I'm a former PagerDuty employee. But that said, 35% of the engineers have already rebuilt 35% of those systems. So congratulations. And Jason is now telling me to move on.
Oh, no, I just thought we were done.
Well,
but we can go back to it.
No, it's okay. We can. This is what happens when we are in person.
It's funny, like it's a completely different process here when you're in person versus like trying to chat online and coordinate things. We still haven't quite gotten this down, but we're having fun with it. We hope you're having fun with us as we take a look at the tech news. So next up, though, since we were talking about our friends at Atlassian, we have a lot of friends around the industry. So this one is a shout out to our friends at Puppet. Many of our friends who were formerly at Puppet. My personal view is any exit is always a good exit. So Perforce, yes, Perforce still exists. Perforce is a thing for those of you who might be younger and maybe not even heard of it. But they acquired Puppet. So Puppet, the infrastructure as code, one of the original infrastructure as code companies, one of the early pioneers in the DevOps movement, started by Luke Kanies and some other folks. Currently, he's left, and it's been run by a bunch of other folks in the meantime who have gotten it to a good place and decided to sell. So
yeah, I mean, this is really exciting, I think, for the Puppet folks. There was a lot of conversation where I saw some of our friends saying, do you say congratulations with a question mark? Congratulations with an exclamation point? I think the consensus was this was a exclamation point and ... maybe. But folks seem genuinely pretty happy about this. I mean, we saw Chef get acquired. Was that last year or the year before?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it all kind of is a blur.
Yeah. So we are seeing these acquisitions happen. This is really exciting. I mean, Puppet has been around for a significant period of time, but Perforce, I think 1995 is how long they've been around. But we're really excited about that. And then also in some other kind of exciting news, Grafana Labs actually raised $240 million in their Series D round.
This is all exciting to us, partly because developer tools, DevOps tools, working on reliability. Grafana Labs, we love the folks there. We actually have several folks who moved on from Gremlin and are now at Grafana, so always happy to cheer them on. But Grafana, if you need monitoring tools and you're looking for something open source, something that you can run on your own, Grafana is a great solution for that. The reason, though, that we love this kind of news is it obviously shows that people are investing in tools, and that is a great thing. You do need monitoring. Whatever tool you use it. But again, if you don't have something, take a look at Grafana. Obviously, with this money, they're going to have a bunch of growth coming up. And so I look forward to seeing what features and new capabilities they add, leveraging the funds.
Absolutely. And then with that too, also another pretty big acquisition in our space as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Harness acquires ChaosNative.
ChaosNative, for those who don't know, are the company that spun out of Maya Data, but they're responsible for Litmus Chaos, which is a CNCF project around chaos engineering, primarily oriented to Kubernetes and running chaos experiments there. Harness, for those who don't know, is a company that's primarily built around a CI/CD platform. So really just allowing you to automate those deployments, but they've got a bunch of other products. The exciting other product that they released along with this acquisition was their service reliability module. Too many SR things, and we're to blame for that, for site reliability chats. But the module is designed to help you track your SLOs and then use that as a gating feature for your deployments. So you can start to not only understand how reliable you are with SLOs, but you can start to use that to really control how you're deploying and what risks you're taking as you're deploying and producing software.
You know, one of the things that I love, though, and we talk about this with Grafana and monitoring and this acquisition and what we just talked about this morning with all of these outages, reliability. It's all about reliability. And That was even, I think AWS added the reliability peer into their well-architected framework. The State of DevOps report was talking about reliability this year. It's just all reliability focused. And I think that we're going to see the industry start to move towards that more. So
yeah, I think the other interesting thing for this is chaos predominantly has been something that's been a manual process, which is generally where we advise people to start, because you're exploring, you're discovering, you're learning about the software and how it actually operates in the real world. One of the things with Harness acquiring ChaosNative and now going to be backing the Litmus Chaos program is this idea of we're getting to the point where people have set baselines. They've done the discovery, they're pushing it into their automation suite and treating it as if it were standard testing, which I think is the natural place for folks to go. So I'm seeing the change in the product and approach to chaos engineering being really indicative of how folks are doing chaos engineering out there in the wild.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing that I did kind of find interesting, though, and maybe it was partially because of one of the conferences that I was speaking at, which was very much more like agile ITSM related, was at the entire conference when I asked who'd heard of chaos engineering as a practice. I think 2 people raised their hand, yet a lot of the talks were still focused on reliability. So I find it really interesting that even though this is such a huge piece of what we all need to be focused on, a lot of the practices don't necessarily follow along that. And this site reliability chats is not an advertisement for Gremlin. That's not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to talk about is just best practices. So if we go back and we kind of look at those outages, like with the trains. So with the trains, again, databases couldn't talk to each other. Could they have practiced for that, or will they learn from it? That's the question.
Yeah.
And then when we look at Amex and the certificate or DNS issue, like what could they have done to prevent that from happening? Because it kind of goes back to this cost of downtime. Jason hates it when I show this cost of downtime slide. There's a lot of math on it.
It's all made up numbers.
It is all made up, but there is a cost.
There definitely is.
And that cost are those tweets. That cost are the engineering time. Like our poor friends and Atlassian have now been working on this 24/7. Those are Atlassian's words, 24/7 for a week. And there's 2 more weeks to go. Like that type of burnout.
Yeah. I mean, for any of those folks that are working those hours, take some time off after all of this.
Yeah, maybe tweet at us. Maybe Jason and I'll send you a cup of coffee, a little.
We'll send you stuff.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
definitely Atlassian folks, reach out to us. Again, I'm going to throw our Twitter handles up on the screen. So if you are watching, reach out to us. We'll send you some good stuff.
One of the things that I said when I was speaking at the DevOps Amsterdam meetup, which by the way, the registration for DevOps Days Amsterdam is up. So if you happen to be in that area, go check it out. One of the things that I said, like I tend to have sympathy for, let's say, our friends and engineers at Slack, because when they have an issue, they're public about it. They talk about how did they learn from it and how did they make sure that it's not going to happen again. And so when I get persnickety, it's with organizations that we see the same reliability issues over and over and over again, and they don't get resolved, and they're not being learned from.
Yeah.
I think Atlassian is one of those organizations that they do things the right way. So I think that this is going to be one of those things that hopefully we'll all learn a little bit from, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. This reminds me of a tweet that I saw this morning that somebody was asking, if you could only choose one, would you choose 100% test coverage or complete observability, like monitoring and alerting on your application?
Oh, that's interesting. What would you choose?
So I voted for monitoring and observability because my notion is test coverage, even 100% test coverage will never prevent every error. And so it's better to have a system that would allow you to find everything that happened, even if that's reactive, than tests that won't cover you entirely and prevent issues.
Yes, and you also had alerting in there too.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's one of the things. Like, so if there is an issue, are the right people going to find out about it? Are they
That's
going
the thing,
to be able
right?
to act on it?
With more tests, you're saying, I want less incidents, but the ones that I do have were probably going to be awful.
Yes.
With monitoring and alerting, you're saying there's no test coverage, so I'm going to have a lot more issues, but at least I know that I will be able to find out what those issues are and respond to them. Thankfully, though, my real response to this is you don't have to choose. So get yourself good test coverage, ensure that you're writing tests, but also get yourself some good monitoring and alerting tools.
And make sure you're validating that those monitoring and alerting tools
actually work
the way you expect. With that, make sure you also just like and subscribe. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Weigh in on Jason's tweet this morning. You can find us on YouTube, on Twitter, heck, even on email. I'm julie@gremlin.com, so feel free to shoot me an email.
Yeah, I'm je@gremlin.com. Also, again, smash that like button, leave us a comment. We're always checking those as well. And so as we catch up with the news, we'll fill you in next week on all of the reliability news from this week. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you then.
Bye.